Want to shift gears a little bit before we close it out and just talk CrossFit, just the organization. What's your
You're
current?
about to get me in trouble.
Well, hey, I'm not trying to bait you or clickbait, but I'm genuine. So part of this is, and I had Don on, I had Dave on. We are a stakeholder in CrossFit success, right? Our brand was born in CrossFit. Born Primitive would not be what it is today if it wasn't for the meteoric rise of CrossFit. So I'm rooting CrossFit on as much as anyone. Being someone that's kind of not at the seat at the table, I definitely would make decisions differently if I was king for a day, but of course I'm not. But I absolutely am have skin in the game and the success of the organization. And we're not just a CrossFit brand. We've branched way out. We got tactical outdoor, these other things, but it's still kind of the roots of the brand. So I'm obviously always keeping an eye on it. I stay in the loop. Again, without tipping my hand, what's your take on what you're seeing right now? It's in CrossFit as an organization. Do you think it's being run correctly? Are they making mistakes? Are they doing better? I'm just curious your take, because you probably have different inroads than I do of kind of what you're seeing.
Honestly, like right now, I'm probably the wrong person to ask in terms of like what's happening internally at CrossFit. Just because like Eddie's 10 months old, and it's like that's just been my world for the last year, and with not competing, not being tied in quite as much with that side of stuff. When I was competing, I tried to always play both sides of the fence of I'm not going to dismiss a bad decision of like a business decision that like, we see the end result of it and we're like, what the fuck? Like it's not good for us. Like we don't like it. But then at the same time, I was always the first one to say like, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes. I wonder what else went into contributing to this decision, because I saw, I was by O'Keefe's side when he ran Wadapalooza, and I would see the stories that, you know, I knew what was happening with O'Keefe. I knew what he was dealing with. And so I knew why the decision got sculpted the way it was. And then I saw, how people responded to it. And they're like, how could you think this is right? I'm like, well, you have 2% of the facts. Like, you don't know shit. And so I was always that guy. Like, don't get me wrong. That didn't mean I wasn't angry with CrossFit at times. It doesn't mean I didn't think that they made bad decisions at times. But like stuff at the CrossFit Games, I was like, look at how much you're trying to coordinate. You have how many competitors, how many spectators. It's like you have to mesh so many variables all at once. The fact that these competitions even happen when there's 2,500 competitors, there's 2,000 volunteers, there's 40,000 spectators. It's like, that's a fucking lot. Most people have trouble coordinating 6 people together for brunch. Never mind thousands of people for an entire week, It's like, that's all. Think about this realistically. No, I mean, the little bit that I have talked to, I've spent a little bit of time with Don. I think he's a great guy. He seems like he has a great head on his shoulders, but like I haven't sat in on any boardroom meetings. I'm so focused on, HWPO and my family that O'Keefe is a lot more tied in. He a lot more of the big picture stuff. But it's like I just hope it just seems tiring after a lot of years of it. Just like seems like so many people are upset and angry, and it's like no decision is correct. There's a problem with every solution, and it's like, guys, let's just work out. Like, let's focus on health and fitness. Let's try to spread the good message. Let's try to put good things into our bodies. And it's like, let's just get back to the community side. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that the community side's gone. It's just like from a competitor standpoint for years and years, it's like you get wrapped up and it's like the stakes are high. It's like for me, the stakes of the games were incredibly high because the way I was set up was no, that was my annual income was the games. Like the way my contracts were set up was I didn't have much of an annual salary. I put all my eggs into one basket of me fucking winning. That was it. So, when my responses to a lot of situations were way bigger than I think seemed justified, because nobody else knew what I had on the line. Nobody understood there was only Sammy and O'Keefe that knew the details. So when stuff came up of, people talking about me at the games, or like, oh, he's not going to do well, or like whatever it was, it's like, no, that shit was, those were fighting words to me, because I was like, no, that's my livelihood. That's my everything. That's how I'm going to provide for my family. Um, but then as soon as I'm out of that, like, I don't make my money from competing anymore. My livelihood doesn't depend on it. Nothing. So it's just like, okay, I just hope that they can run clean, a clean, well-rounded competition. Getting involved more on the community side, it's been a lot of fun. But it's like, for us, like, we've had the affiliates around us that we drop into. That's never changed. They've always been the same community. They've always been the same friends. So I mean, in terms of like the big picture of CrossFit, nah, I don't know. I hope they can just make the right decisions, do well for themselves, do well for their community, and keep it going.
Yeah, we do too, and I think it all comes down to community. I mean, you nailed it. There's something special about going into a CrossFit gym and struggling together and becoming friends with those people, and that's where the magic was right in the beginning, and that's why it became into this global phenomenon. And I think we'll see how things go. I think my optic is, there's one area that they could really improve on is just storytelling. Like, I don't know if you follow the UFC much. But I think what's brilliant with the UFC, and I'm a casual fight. I'm not some diehard MMA guy, but I tune in enough. I'll probably get 3 or 4 fights in a year that I'll order. But sometimes you watch the pre, I don't even know what the program's called, but it gives you the behind the scenes with the fighters, and you start learning their backstories. And
you get a glimpse into their camp.
Yeah, and before you know it, I'm like, an hour ago I didn't know who this guy was, and now I'm like at the edge of my seat, rooting this guy on, because you know what I mean. And I feel like that creates such a personal element, and I feel like they can do that with CrossFit, because I hate to say it, I'm pretty involved in CrossFit. I don't know who half the people are anymore, right? And so when someone gets 6th place, I'm like, I don't know who the fuck that is. But if they told me the story of that girl and that she used to be this and now then I'd be like, oh, hell yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel that there's a lot of opportunity there, because it'll get some Joe Schmo like me that really doesn't give a shit to then be way more invested, because I know the storylines of the athletes. So that's my one thing. I think, the top dogs, you guys, we know.
Yeah, now that you mention it, totally. When I remember when I first got in the space, it's like, I think, that 2012, 2012, 2014, it's like CrossFit media was firing on all cylinders. Like, they were storytelling, and it was fucking cool. Like, all the Road to the Games videos.
Yeah.
Like, I remember even when they had the update show, and it was like, I remember Pat Sherwood used to call every athlete, every athlete that qualified for the games, or every athlete that was going into regionals looking good. He was calling. He was getting the backstories. He was getting that information. And then they had a whole show dedicated to just talking about that. And then the Road to the Games videos, you want to talk about just the fucking coolest. You're getting a glimpse into these athletes' personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really funny, watching those videos in the moment. They would come record, and then the video is getting released a week later, and so you're looking at it through the lenses of, that's just my current life. But looking back at it now, it's like, those are some of my favorite videos, because it documented everything. It showed, I get to show those videos to my kids, and I don't have to really try to I don't have to waste time trying to describe what the gym looked like, or who these people were, or anything. It's like, no, you get to watch my home video. You get to see where I trained. You get to see, me getting grilled, getting asked these questions. You got to see my apartment, my home life, all that shit. I think it was so cool. And it was such a bummer when it all went away. Yeah, that was tough. And I don't think the impact was immediate, but I think we are seeing the impact now, because we're not as familiar with as many athletes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one because I know it's expensive. And I know like they're trying to fix profitability. So it's like one of those things like, oh, you can hire a media team, but then you're gonna be less profitable in the near term, but long term it might make you more profitable because it gets so and it's always operationally it's different when you're the one actually running the show. And someone who owns a company, I totally acknowledge that. And I'm not trying to, Monday morning quarterback it. But I just think from a consumer standpoint, that would be one area because there are so many badass stories that could be told. And that helps the athletes too, right? Because then their stock rises, rising tide raises all ships sort of thing.